The Decline and Fall of the American Civilization by the Grumpy Veteran Project. Episode 3, Education, Prologue. The Broken Promise. Once, America stood as a promise, a shining city on a hill, built on the ideals of liberty, justice, and opportunity. We were told that our way was the right way, the only way. But promises have a way of fading, and ideals can be bought, sold, and betrayed. Today that promise feels like a memory, fractured under the weight of greed, fear, and division. The systems we trusted, healthcare, education, democracy itself, are crumbling not from outside forces but from the rot within. We've turned our values into commodities, our leaders into celebrities, and if people die on the path to another $1 million, well, that's just collateral damage. Every crisis is a profit opportunity, every solution another chance to deepen the divide. As the threads of civilization unravel, we're left asking, was the promise ever real, or just a story we told ourselves to sleep at night? This is the story of the decline and fall of the American civilization, a tale of what was lost, who betrayed us, and whether there's still time to fight for what remains. Once, America promised education as a gateway to opportunity, a foundation of the American dream. But today that promise rings hollow. Schools across the country face a crisis, underfunded and overburdened, as social and political agendas increasingly take priority over learning. In this complex landscape, students, especially those from low-income communities, find themselves at the mercy of an unstable and divided system. In countries like Finland, Sweden, and Norway, education remains focused on the fundamentals. Graduation rates exceed 90%, and literacy is near universal. Students in these countries thrive with equal access to high-quality resources, no matter where they live or their economic background. In Scandinavia, education is a right, not a privilege. Education has become a battleground for social and political issues. While Scandinavian schools concentrate on academics and fostering well-rounded individuals, many American schools are now tasked with promoting social and political discourse. From mandated curriculum on social justice to debates over gender identity and inclusion policies, education has become increasingly politicized. Many educators feel they are no longer just teaching, they are navigating social and political minefields. Discussions of sexual orientation, gender identity, and social justice are woven into the curriculum, often leaving parents and communities divided over what should be taught in the classroom. Critics argue that this shift has drawn focus away from essential skills like reading, math, and science. The consequences are clear. With increasing attention on social discourse, core academic skills have suffered. About 21% of American adults are functionally illiterate, and approximately 54% of American adults read below a 6th grade level. This statistic, based on data from the U.S. Department of Education, indicates that about 130 million adults between the ages of 16 and 74 have low literacy skills. Low literacy levels can significantly impact individuals' daily lives, affecting their ability to perform tasks such as understanding medical instructions, comprehending legal documents, or completing job applications. Moreover, this widespread issue has broader economic implications, with estimates suggesting that low literacy costs the U.S. up to $2.2 trillion annually. In Scandinavia, schools emphasize holistic learning, fostering critical thinking, problem-solving, and collaboration. Testing is minimal, and teachers have the autonomy to adapt lessons to meet the needs of their students. By focusing on building well-rounded citizens, these countries prepare students for a global workforce. In the United States, education funding depends largely on local property taxes, creating vast inequalities between affluent and low-income areas. While wealthier districts can afford modern resources, technology, and extracurriculars, schools in underfunded areas lack the basics. National graduation rates obscure a troubling reality in many urban and rural communities. where dropout rates hover around 30%. Despite the Democratic Party's focus on education reform and increased funding, federal support often fails to bridge these gaps. Programs like Title I provide supplemental funding to low-income schools, but many argue it is insufficient to address the root causes of inequality. The reliance on local funding continues to exacerbate these disparities, creating a system where a child's zip code can determine their future. As education has become a platform for political and social agendas, some critics argue that academics are losing priority. Initiatives centered on diversity, gender identity, and social justice dominate many schools' resources and focus. Supporters argue that these programs are necessary for inclusivity and empowerment, while opponents suggest that schools are straying too far from their primary mission. The East Asian model lessons from China and Japan. While the United States grapples with a fractured educational system, countries like China and Japan have developed systems that consistently outpace American students in literacy, math, and science. These nations emphasize academic rigor, cultural respect for education, and strong teacher support, creating a stark contrast to the challenges faced by American schools. Performance metrics. Chinese and Japanese students rank among the top in global education assessments like PISA, the Program for International Student Assessment. For instance, in literacy, China and Japan regularly surpass the United States, with over 99% literacy rates compared to America's adult functional literacy rate of 79%. In mathematics and science, East Asian students dominate, reflecting a curriculum that prioritizes analytical and problem-solving skills. Dropout rates in China and Japan are strikingly low. Japan maintains a less than 2% dropout rate, one of the lowest globally. China, with its vast population, manages to keep dropout rates under 10%, even in rural areas. In contrast, the United States struggles with dropout rates as high as 30% in some urban and rural communities. One key to their success lies in the societal respect and compensation afforded to teachers. In Japan, teachers are considered national treasures, often earning salaries comparable to engineers and enjoying significant job security. In China, teachers are viewed as architects of the nation's future, supported with robust professional development and a clear career path. The United States, by contrast, faces a teacher exodus due to low pay, overwork, and lack of societal respect. American educators often cite burnout and political interference as reasons for leaving the profession. Both China and Japan foster a deep cultural respect for learning. Parents and communities actively support students, ensuring they value education as a means to personal and national growth. In America, however, political and social agendas increasingly overshadow the classroom's primary purpose, leading to disillusionment among students and educators alike. In Scandinavia, funding is centralized and standardized, ensuring that every student receives a similar quality of education. By contrast, in the United States, the priority on social agendas and standardized testing diverts funds from academic essentials. This fragmented approach to funding leaves many schools in constant financial strain. Education was once America's promise to its youth, a foundation to build a better life. But today, as political agendas and social debates overshadow learning, that promise fades. Countries like Finland and Sweden focus on building a resilient, well-prepared generation, while the United States struggles to fulfill its educational obligations. As we examine the broader implications of educational systems, the topic of religious practices in public schools demands our attention. This issue is multifaceted, affecting inclusivity, scientific education, and freedom of belief. Public schools serve students from a myriad of religious, cultural, and secular backgrounds. Introducing specific religious practices like prayers or displaying the Ten Commandments can alienate those who do not share these beliefs, fostering an environment of exclusion. U.S. courts have consistently ruled that public schools must maintain a separation of church and state to protect the religious freedom of all students. Landmark cases such as Engel v. Vitale in 1962 banned mandatory prayer in schools. Promoting religious perspectives can also challenge the teaching of evidence-based science on topics like evolution, climate change, and reproductive health. This often leads to censorship and limits students' exposure to critical thinking and scientific literacy. Moreover, introducing religious practices risks pressuring students to participate in activities that contradict their beliefs, infringing on their First Amendment rights. Parents from non-Christian or non-religious backgrounds may object to their children being exposed to conflicting religious teachings. While proponents argue that incorporating religious elements promotes ethical behavior and discipline, critics contend that moral education should be taught through secular frameworks to ensure neutrality and inclusivity. The U.S. Constitution's Establishment Clause prohibits the government from establishing a religion, as reinforced by Supreme Court rulings like Abington School District v. Schempp in 1963 and Stone v. Graham in 1980. The introduction of religious practices in public schools often intensifies cultural and political divisions, leading to contentious debates and lawsuits. Instead, promoting universal values like respect, honesty, and kindness through secular programs can ensure inclusivity. Encouraging voluntary, personal prayer or religious observance outside of classroom instruction respects individual beliefs without infringing on others' rights. While private faith-based schools have the liberty to include religion in their curricula, public schools must uphold scientific standards and secular governance. Public education prioritizing inclusivity and evidence-based learning prepares students to thrive in diverse, pluralistic societies. The intersection of religion and public education remains a sensitive issue, but the goal should be to foster environments where all students feel valued, respected, and free to learn without coercion or exclusion. Efforts to introduce religious elements such as the Ten Commandments and school-led prayers into public school classrooms have sparked significant debate. These initiatives raise questions about their alignment with educational priorities, particularly concerning literacy, graduation rates, and overall academic performance. Recent initiatives. Louisiana. In June 2024, Governor Jeff Landry signed a law mandating the display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom. This move faced immediate legal challenges, with critics arguing it violates the constitutional separation of church and state. In November 2024, a federal judge blocked the law, deeming it unconstitutional on its face. AP News. Texas. In April 2023, the Texas Senate approved a bill requiring public schools to display the Ten Commandments in classrooms. However, the bill did not pass in the House before the legislative session ended. Texas Tribune. Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters advocated for placing Bibles in every classroom and incorporating religious education into the curriculum, actions that have ignited controversy and potential legal disputes. The Times. Educational outcomes. Focusing on religious displays in classrooms may divert attention from critical educational challenges. Literacy rates. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, indicates that a significant percentage of students are not reading at grade level. For example, Louisiana, approximately 27.1% of adults lack basic prose literacy skills, resulting in a literacy rate of 72.9%. World Population Review. Texas. About 19.0% of adults lack basic prose literacy skills, leading to a literacy rate of 81.0%. World Population Review. Oklahoma, approximately 20.1% of adults lack basic prose literacy skills, resulting in a literacy rate of 79.9%. World Population Review. High school graduation rates, Louisiana. The high school graduation rate stands at 85%, below the national average of 86%. The Literacy Clinic, Texas. The graduation rate is approximately 84.4%. Data Pandas. Oklahoma. The graduation rate is about 88.6%, aligning closely with the national average. Data Pandas. College education attainment, Louisiana. The average college graduation rate is 40.58%, with a retention rate of 58.58%. UnivStats, Texas. The state ranks 28th nationally for college enrollment per capita at 5,423. Data Pandas. Oklahoma. The state ranks 42nd nationally for college enrollment per capita at 4,746. Data Pandas. Standardized test scores, NAEP reading scores for 2022 4th grade. Louisiana, average score of 207, below the national average of 216. Nations Report Card. Texas, average score of 214, slightly below the national average. Nation's report card. Oklahoma, average score of 212, also below the national average. Nation's report card. Contrasting priorities. The emphasis on religious displays in public schools raises concerns about the allocation of resources and attention. Resource allocation. Implementing mandates for religious displays may divert funds from programs aimed at improving literacy, numeracy, and overall educational quality. Legal challenges. These initiatives often lead to costly legal battles. For example, Louisiana incurred significant expenses defending its Ten Commandments law. AP News. Educational focus. Prioritizing religious displays may shift focus from evidence-based strategies that address educational deficiencies, potentially impacting student outcomes. Conclusion. While the integration of religious elements in public schools is intended to promote moral values, it may conflict with constitutional principles and divert attention from pressing educational challenges. Addressing issues like literacy and graduation rates requires a concentrated effort on effective educational strategies and resource allocation. Ensuring all students receive a quality education should remain the primary goal of public schools. The Decline and Fall of the American Civilization Education by the Grumpy Veteran Project.